Good afternoon, representatives. I'm going to go ahead and rule that we have a quorum present and call the House to order. I want to welcome everybody back to this afternoon's session. And we're going to get started off. We've got a few communications that we're going to do, and then we've got two bills on the time certain calendar, and then we will be back at it. So, with that, Madam Reading Clerk for communications from the Senate.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Senate passed as amended SB 194, Arts and Culture Business Alliance by Senator DeBacchus. The Senate passed as substituted and amended for substitute SB 244, Department of Environmental Quality Modifications by Senator Dayton. Passed SB 278, Motion Picture Incentive Amendments by Senator Bramble. Passed SB 287, Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act Amendments by Senator Bramble. Passed as substituted for substitute SCR 10, Concurrent Resolution Regarding Public Lands Initiative by Senator Hinkins, and are transmitted for consideration. Respectfully, Leslie McLean, Secretary of the Senate.
These bills have been read for the first time and are going to be referred to the Rules Committee. Madam Reading Clerk for introduction of bills.
HB 2, Public Education Budget Amendments, Representative Sampé.
This bill has been read for the first time and will be referred to the Rules Committee. Okay. Does that complete our communications? I believe it does. Okay. All right. Representatives, we're going to move to the time certain calendar. And with that, Madam Reading Clerk for items on the time certain calendar.
HB 410, State and Local Energy Efficiency Programs, Representative Draxler. This bill was heard in Government Operations with a vote of 703.
Representative Draxler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. House Bill 410, Representatives, you'll have a handout like this on your desks that just lays this out very clearly. It's a very simple approach to cleaning up the fleets that operate in government agencies, state, local, school districts, universities, and so on. It implements a program that has already been working with buildings wherein energy savings can be applied to the cost of more energy efficient components. This bill simply expands it to vehicles, and it makes it possible for state, local governments, and universities to purchase electric and CNG vehicles for their fleets at a faster rate. They can already do that, and many of them do, but this allows it at a faster rate, and it's a good way of setting an example for the rest of the state with energy-efficient vehicles. It approves using the same financing mechanism for efficient fleet vehicles as has been used for years to enable energy-efficient upgrades in buildings. This process is called energy performance contracting. Now, HB 410 is not a mandate. It's completely voluntary on the part of state agencies or local governments. It's good for taxpayers because it allows these folks to increase or to convert their fleets to much more efficient and low-cost vehicles in terms of electric and CNG vehicles. It also makes a very significant contribution to cleaner air, because if you consider the size of the aggregate size of this fleet, all the vehicles that state governments, county governments, city governments, and colleges and universities have, that is a lot of vehicles, and it could make a significant contribution to cleaner air. Energy performance contracting is just a financing mechanism where the savings that are experienced by using a higher efficiency vehicle can be applied to the cost of purchasing those vehicles. It broadens the allowable use from simply buildings to the use of vehicles. And with that, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, be happy to answer any questions.
Am I on now? Okay. Chair will recognize Representative Hall. You have your light on? Representative Draxler? Representative Hall, you're still on. There you go. You're not. Any further discussion to this bill? Seeing none, Representative Draxler, will go back to you for summation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. This is, if I guess if you could call it a no-brainer, it really is, because there's no fiscal note, there's no mandate, but it can make a significant difference when you consider the size of these fleets. And just in summation, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, the reason this is on time certain is because tomorrow, when we won't be having floor time during the day, there will be a clean energy business day at the Capitol from 11 to 1 here in the Rotunda. Businesses in the state who are in the business of cleaner energy will be here to share with us some of the really outstanding things that they're doing. Thank you very much. I encourage your support.
Voting is open on House Bill 410.
So you vote by pressing the green one.
I've done it. Quickly vote. Seeing all present having voted, we'll close the vote. House Bill 410 having received 56 yea votes, 0 nay votes, will pass this 66, excuse me. 66 yea votes, 0 nay votes. Pass this body and will be forwarded to the Senate for their consideration. Madam Reading Clerk, for another time certain.
HCR 11, concurrent resolution recognizing the 50th anniversary of the office of the State Fire Marshal, Representative Hutchings. This bill was heard in Economic Development and Workforce Services with a vote of 10-02.
Representative Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So today we have the honor of, thank you. Having not yet spoken, I need to ask the body, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, to suspend the one-day legislative bill rule and allow us to hear House Concurrent Resolution 11.
Okay, we have a motion before us to suspend our rules for the purpose of hearing this bill after only one day. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Chair rules the motion carries. Representative Hutchings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I apologize for that. It's been 50 years since we created the Office of the State Fire Marshal, and since that time they have done some exemplary work. They coordinate with the 268 different fire districts that are around the state, helping them to come up with training. They create the safety standards. They do the training for all those folks, both the full-time and the volunteer firefighters that are there. And over the course of the years, they have put into place the standards that we use in order to create good building codes, in order to be able to develop safety standards for fighting fires, both in buildings and wildfires and all those types of things. And the state of Utah, we could go on and on about the accomplishments that they've done, but the state of Utah is a much better place because of the work that they've done. And it's just an honor and a privilege to be able to welcome them and to thank them and to recognize them today, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, with this resolution honoring the 50th anniversary of that office and the accomplishments of that office. Thank you, sir.
Okay, discussion to the resolution honoring our state fire marshal. Representative Thurston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I just want to express my appreciation as well, especially to Mr. Porter. He's one of my neighbors, one of my constituents, lived in the neighborhood forever, and it's one of the nicest guys we ever met. I couldn't be prouder to have somebody from my neighborhood be the state fire marshal. I'd love to have you guys here today.
Further discussion to the resolution. Seeing none, we'll go back to representative for summation.
I'll waive summation, sir. Thank you.
Summation's waived. Voting is open on House Concurrent Resolution 11. Seeing all present having voted, we'll close the vote. House Concurrent Resolution 11 having received 64 yea votes and 0 nay votes passes this body. Be forwarded to the Senate for their consideration. Representative. We've done it.
And then you have to say that, and then you have to take us back to the third reading calendar. You have to say we're going to go back to
Okay. Back to the third reading calendar. Representative, go ahead. Madam Reading Clerk.
HB 420, revisions to transportation funding, Representative Anderson. This bill was heard in transportation with a vote of 11-1-1.
Representative Anderson, we may be out of sequence here a little for what you wanted, so you proceed with. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll proceed with this bill, and then you give me the opportunity to make that other motion after? Does that work?
That'll be fine.
Okay,
sure.
all right. All right, Representatives, House Bill 420 does a couple of things. In Salt Lake County, we currently, hopefully you've heard of this before, we have a 0.25% sales tax that is used for transportation. Salt Lake County implements the tax, they charge the tax, they collect the tax, and then the legislature directs the spending of how that money can be used within Salt Lake County. So what this bill will do will eliminate the legislature's involvement in how Salt Lake County is spending its transportation money. So after any bond payments are made off of that, the rest of the money will be returned to Salt Lake County so that, again, they can make a decision on how that's being spent, and it would end the practice of, what's been fondly called Christmas tree bills up here in the legislature within Salt Lake County. So that's the first thing it does. The second thing it does is puts a one-year moratorium on programming for the Transportation Commission. So we would look ahead to 2019 and we'd say, okay, Transportation Commission, we want you to hold off. Don't program anything in 2019 yet, because during the upcoming year, the Transportation Interim Committee is going to conduct a study on that process. Once that study is complete, we would go ahead and release that for programming under whatever whatever scenario we put together for that, and we would move forward at that point. So that's what the bill does, those two things.
Thank you, Representative. Any discussion to the bill? Seeing none, Representative Anderson, back to you for summation.
I will waive.
Summation is waived. Voting is open on House Bill 420, revisions to transportation funding. Representative Pitcher. Seeing all present having voted, voting is closed. House Bill 420, having received 68 yea votes, 0 nay votes, passes this body and will be referred to the Senate for further consideration. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Motion to uncircle.
Uncircle.
First substitute House Bill 362, revisions to transportation funding.
That motion is in order. Would you like to speak to that?
I would. Yeah, my intention here, Representatives, is to uncircle this bill, substitute with the third substitute that we've been discussing, and that third substitute puts in place the hard ceiling of 40 cents. It says that the maintenance of effort, has to be in place for 5 years, and changes the local option from a lane miles and population distribution to a point of sale and population distribution. So those are the technical aspects. And then I'll circle that up and, talk offline with anybody who has any more questions and uncircle later this evening.
Okay, thank you, Representatives. Representatives, the motion before us is to uncircle House Bill, first substitute, House Bill 362. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is uncircled and properly before us. Representative Anderson, to presentation on the bill.
Motion to substitute.
Motion is in order. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I'd like to substitute first substitute House Bill 362 with third substitute House Bill 362. Again, this third substitute has the revisions that we've discussed.
Thank you. Discussion to the motion to substitute. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and place that motion. The motion before us is to first substitute House Bill 362 with third substitute House Bill 362. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is substituted. Representative Anderson.
Motion to circle.
Motion, Representatives, is to circle third substitute House Bill 362. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is substituted. Thank you, Representative. Representative Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to encircle HB 394. Did I do that right?
Yep. Will you state the short title of the bill, please?
New car sales amendments.
Representatives, the motion is to uncircle House Bill 394, new car sales amendments. Any discussion to the motion to uncircle? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Ooh. I'm going to do that one more time. That could get interesting. Representatives, to the motion to uncircle House Bill 394, new car sales amendments. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. That was a little clear. Thank you. Rule that motion passes. The bill is uncircled. Representative Coleman to presentation on the bill.
Thank you. I also move to second substitute HB 394 with the second substitute.
That motion is in order. Would you like to speak to that?
That was messy. It is it's just a substitute that recognizes some agreements between the auto dealers and the new online dealers.
Okay, Representatives, the motion before us is to substitute House Bill 394 with second substitute. Is that correct? House Bill 394. Discussion to the motion to substitute. Representative Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would appreciate if the sponsor would yield to a question.
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
You've said that the substitute reflects some agreements. I'd like you to go through the differences in more detail, unless you're planning to recircle this and we'll have an opportunity to review it. And if this is as a result of agreements, I'd like you to tell us who has agreed to this.
Okay, thank you. There's a handout that went out with a photo of I think it's a business opening, now open kind of thing, and it does discuss this. But what we do mainly is we met with auto dealers, with individual auto dealers, representatives from the Auto Dealer Association of Utah as well, people representing Tesla, which is one of the businesses that will be affected by this, and agreed to terms and concepts that are now represented in this substitute.
So let me just understand, the new car dealers of Utah have agreed to this?
Yes, so just before our recess, I received affirmative word from Mr. Craig Bickmore, who represents the new auto dealers of Utah, again affirming that they represent, or that they have agreed to the concepts and the terms that are in this bill. This was actually reached on Friday morning. And throughout the weekend, we have also continued to concede to more things in agreement with the auto dealers.
Thank you. Have the manufacturers been involved in those negotiations?
The manufacturers were initially involved in the negotiations, but chose to not participate on this bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Additional discussion to the motion to substitute. Representative Wilson to the motion to substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I just first of all want to commend the sponsor of this bill for tackling a difficult issue. And I would just say I have, too, participated in some of these discussions with these three different parties. And the sponsors worked diligently to try to find common ground that everyone could agree with. And the dealers and the new entrant into the market, Tesla, are comfortable with this language. The manufacturers are a little uncomfortable. And I view it this way, Representatives. This is, if I were a manufacturer, I would view this as a win. The market's changing. This is a sign that the market's changing. And I think the good work the representative has done is witness to that. And we'll just have to keep bringing the manufacturers along and work with them over the course of the next year or two to keep working on these issues. So thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Representative. Any additional discussion to the motion to substitute? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and place that motion. The motion, Representatives, before us is to substitute House Bill 394 with second substitute House Bill 394. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is substituted. Representative Coleman, back to you for presentation on the bill.
Thank you. As was mentioned just a minute ago, the Clean Air Business Forum that will be held tomorrow, Tesla is a participant in that, since Tesla's already been mentioned. So that actually makes this a clean air bill. Actually, what it really is one of several bills that seek to resolve issues related to the ability and desire for new companies to do things differently, such as Zenefits and Uber that we've also seen this session. Technology has enabled us to think out of the box, disrupting traditional logistics, applying innovation, improving price and consumer experiences. So why has this bill gotten so much attention? It's because America's had a long history and tradition of distribution of goods, generally from a model of manufacturer to distributor to retailer. And that has been a necessary model of logistics to reach customers across a large nation. But now technology is challenging long-standing supply chain management. I will share with you that I have grown to understand a lot more about this industry than I did 5 weeks ago. And very simply, historically, the auto manufacturers needed to engage local retailers to show, sell, and service its vehicles. And over time, there developed a nationwide system of auto franchising. Dealers will tell you that the manufacturer-franchise relationship has been a painful inequity of bargaining power. They tell stories of manufacturer bullying and destroying franchises and a myriad of unfair practices. And as the number of franchisors grew in the states, their presence in the community and impact on the economy led them to gain strong political influence. This influence was then used to create an extensive set of laws called the New Auto Dealer Franchise that limits in great detail what a manufacturer can do to a franchise. According to the dealers, this act has been necessary to equalize the bargaining power between those two entities. But this act never saw the internet coming. But for the purposes of this bill, I have chosen to assume that there exists a delicate equilibrium in the existing world of the auto manufacturers and dealer franchises. I recognize that despite the painful, fearful, codependent, abusive relationship our local dealers describe as having with their manufacturer partner, they like it that way. So this bill recognizes that. And in many hours of consultation and negotiation with the auto dealers, we've decided to leave the traditional auto dealership system intact while creating a new lane for the modern manufacturer who decides to forego the antiquated distribution model in exchange for a modern consumer experience and digital logistics. Tesla is the case in point for this bill, likely to be followed in the next 5 years by the highly anticipated Google and Apple cars. Tesla's South Salt Lake store was scheduled to have a grand opening on Friday, and you've probably heard that they received a denial letter from the State Tax Commission. And why was this? Was it because it wasn't a legitimate company? No. Were there health or safety concerns? No. Does it pose a risk to Utah consumers? No. Can I buy one? No. The reason Tesla was denied was because our law requires new auto sales be transacted through a third-party franchise dealership, and that simply is not Tesla's business model. Much like Apple or Dell, Tesla prides itself on providing a direct-from-manufacturer customer experience. So let me get to what the bill does. And again, these elements are largely contributed by the auto dealerships in order to preserve what they do and minimize their risk. Number one, we distinguish the franchise system from a new designation of an online dealer. This type of dealership does allow for direct from manufacturer sales. Number two, manufacturers with existing franchises in Utah may not switch lanes to become an online dealer, and this was a fear of a lot of the dealers, that the manufacturer may let their franchises lapse or even revoke them to become a competitor in that field. But we grandfather that, and we don't allow that to happen in this bill. Number three, we ensure that online dealers are limited in scope to selling cars online. We do allow a limited showroom ability and test driving of vehicles for those online dealerships that do choose to have a showroom presence around the country. We clarify that the sales tax is collected and remains in Utah. And 5, we provide a strong added consumer protection that requires that an online dealer have an authorized service center, so we don't get a fly-by-night company that sells lemons. Number 6, we submit to most things that regular dealerships have to submit to, including bonding, a lot of the consumer protections, lemon laws, things like that. Now, there are some realities about the current situation I would like to emphasize. Someone who wants to buy a Tesla will buy a Tesla. They'll just buy it in another state. So it's a niche market. It's not a direct competitor, but Tesla customers are traveling the country to buy one. It should not be illegal to purchase a Tesla automobile in Utah. And that concludes. Thank you.
You still have 6 seconds, Representative, if you want to use them. Thank you, Representative. Discussion to the bill. Representative Cunningham, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Will the bill sponsor answer a couple of questions, and then I'd like to make comment after?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you tell me why our Attorney General has a cease and desist against his company currently?
I'm not aware that they have a cease and desist. What I am aware of is that Tesla has acquired property and plan to open what would be a combination showroom/service center. There are no prohibitions on operating the service center, but they are not allowed to conduct sales transactions at that site, and they received notice and, to my knowledge, did not have their sales grand opening on Friday as scheduled.
Thank you. Second question I have is on line 231 of the bill. It says, notwithstanding any provision of the section of contrary, an online dealer may operate without a principal place of business and sell vehicles. Can you explain that to me in correlation to the flyer that was passed out saying, because I'm confused about this, they can have up to 6 vehicles displayed on the showroom floor, and demonstration vehicles are maintained at the showroom for sole purpose of allowing prospective buyers to test drive the manufacturer's own line make vehicles. So to me it sounds like it's another car dealership. It's supposed to be online, but we're going to have a showroom that allows people to test drive. Can you answer that question for me in regards to the bill and in this flyer that was sent out?
I can. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Tesla, the model of Tesla, and what we anticipate in subsequent manufacturers entering this space is it is primarily, if not only, an online transaction. Cars are typically made to order, and that is done online. For a few states, I want to say about 20 states, Tesla has chosen to put showrooms in about 20 states. This is great for South Salt Lake, who gets the benefit of that new business, and the employees, the jobs that produces, the property tax that produces. In the discussions with the auto dealers, however, we wanted to distinguish that if we're creating a different lane, a different model, that really does look very different, behave very different. And so the concession was that there would be limited vehicles, there would be no sales inventory on the premise. So the agreement was to limit a number of display vehicles inside the store, a number of demo vehicles outside of the store, but again, keeping that very limited and no sales inventory there. So this was one thing that we agreed to with the auto dealers.
Thank you. If I can make my comments on that. You know, a couple of weeks ago and last week, we ran another deal that was compromised that the great representative from Utah County helped us take care of. And I was in agreement that we needed to do that. But we ran over him with a Mack truck there. Now with this bill, we're going to back over them. These are businesses in the state that have spent millions and tens of millions of their own dollars, but yet I can't see how, when somebody in this bill is saying we're going to do this online, but yet we're going to go let you test drive it here. I would love to have my wife test drive many of the things that she takes care of on Amazon that she buys, but it doesn't work. And I struggle with this in the definition. I believe this is happening too fast. We need to take a step back and look at all the ramifications on this over the summer, because I believe we're headed in the right direction. But this bill came out of nowhere because a business came into town, put up a business, and now needs to be in business, but yet we're running into a direct competition, I believe, without all of our other manufacturers, with not only the manufacturers, but the auto dealers that are out there. And I don't believe, in talking to some of our dealers out there, that a compromise has been met. Their attorneys are still looking at the language to see if they can even deal with it. So with that, this is bad policy. We need to look at this. Let's take a step back and look at this and see where we're going to go to compete fairly in the business. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We have several additional lights. Representative Ivory, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I applaud the efforts of the good sponsor. She has worked tirelessly, and a couple of weeks ago we had the debate on how much we want to have auto dealers come, particularly to our community of West Jordan that has 110,000 people, and yet we're one of the bottom 2 percentile of communities of that size that don't have a dealership because of the benefits of having auto dealerships come to the community. And we had that debate, and there was a lot to that, the economic development, the employment, the sales tax revenue, and all of those things that happen in connection with that. And yet I applaud the representative in terms of needing to disrupt and move forward in what we do. We have a system that she's gone through very tirelessly, is very antiquated, and has a lot of unusual parts and pieces to the code that are hodgepodge that create handcuffs. And unfortunately, those handcuffs are on the dealers now. So we have dealers that are living in a system that have been handcuffed by a buggy whip code, perhaps, and yet we're ready to move into the wave of the future. And I agree we should do that. I agree we should disrupt and move forward. But I'm concerned that we leave those that are already handcuffed by a buggy whip code in the past. And these are the very businesses that have been contributing to the community. 15-16% of a $6.5 billion sales tax revenue comes from our auto dealerships. The $1 million in payroll. So many other things that come from this very substantial part of our industry that just 2 weeks ago we said we want them to come to our community. We want to strengthen the dealerships. And so I applaud the effort. I think it's time that we look to move forward and be the leader in this kind of disruption. I think we need to do that very circumspectly. I've filed a master study resolution that in the interim we have business and labor, other committees, perhaps appropriate committees, look at this and make sure that with our dealerships we take a good, solid, circumspect look at bringing those that have already invested substantially in the community forward with us, or have them lead out, encourage the ability, but we don't saddle them with a buggy whip code. And so for that, I have an inability to support this bill at this time. I look forward to continued work. I think this is a wonderful idea. I think it's a wonderful proposal. I applaud the work that the great representative has done on this.
Thank you, Representative. Next, Representative Cutler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Or Chair Pro Tem. No, Speaker Pro Tem. Get the right words here. Something. I want to speak and in admiration of the great sponsor of this bill. She has done a tremendous job, and I agree that this code needs some reworking, as both the representative from South Jordan and West Jordan have mentioned. And matter of fact, I have recommended that we take the interim and study this whole issue, as there are quite a few car dealerships also in Murray, which I don't represent them specifically, but certainly many of us in Murray are affected by that. So I think that we do need to look at this. I haven't had a chance to look at all the details and check with all of those who would be impacted by this. And so I would also be opposed to this, but certainly not opposed to studying it more and coming up with a more comprehensive solution next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Aaron, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes. I'm reading through this new language, and there's quite a bit of new language. There's requirements for having service departments. There's issues in terms of understanding the position of our current auto dealers. I've been trying to communicate with them. I think we just need a little bit of time. I'm not saying that we can't look at this later today, but I would like to have a little time to review this.
Okay. Representatives, the motion before us is to circle second substitute House Bill 394. Representative Coleman, back to you on the motion to circle.
I'm willing to submit to what this body would like to do, but this really is the bill that is the result of a lot of work. It is ready. I've outlined for you the tenets that are new to this. This bill has been out for a while, so I think that we've described what is new in this substitute that, again, largely comes from the dealers themselves in a compromise, in an agreement that they feel protects and preserves what they do, and without having any kind of large disruption. 5 weeks ago, I might have talked about full-scale disruption, but where we are now is this bill, in effect, minimizes any disruption to the existing auto franchise. So I think it's I'd like to move forward on it.
Okay. Representatives, we have a motion before us to circle. We've got lots of lights. Maybe to speed this up a little bit, if you don't want to speak to the bill, maybe you ought to hit your light. So, to the motion to circle, if you would like to speak to the motion to circle, please leave your light on. Otherwise, please drop your lights. Representative Gibson, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would oppose the motion to circle. The good representative who sponsored this bill has worked her butt off tirelessly on this issue. Time and time again, we come to something only to have the opposing party stall. Here we are, 3 days from the end of the session. It's time to hear the bill. If you don't like it, vote no. But stop stalling. That's exactly what this is. She will go and we'll have a negotiation, we'll have a settlement. Oh, let me think about that. I got to call my 25 attorneys and my big board of directors. She has worked hard on this bill. We are not going to circle it. If I could vote that way, you vote the way you want. But we need to move on.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Stratton, you are next. To the motion to circle.
Thank you. I have two questions, one to the maker of the motion, one to the underlying maker of the underlying bill. To the maker of the motion, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, will she yield to a question?
Representative Arendt, will you yield?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, sir.
Are you in favor of this bill?
The reason I made the motion to circle is I'm trying to read the new language now. I actually, as someone who cares about clean air, want to make sure we can do all we can to have vehicles that provide better air quality. So I certainly don't have anything against the bill, but I want to know what's in it. And I know that those who are particularly impacted have told me they have not had a full chance to review it yet. I will note that it was certainly not my fault that this bill came out this late in the session, and I do appreciate the work of the good sponsor, but it's not my fault that it took this long to get here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. To the maker of the bill, she yield to a question.
Representative Coleman, will you yield?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Would you call this a consensus bill now that you have with this amendment?
On Friday, we had an agreement on terms and concepts that were largely that were included in a draft. The opponents to this, the dealers, did over the weekend suggest additional what they called technical language, which we incorporated almost all of that. So this form represents both the agreement that we had on Friday with some additional concessions that we made on this. We are continuing to scour technical language for anything that might still be outstanding, but what you see in substance, in concept, and in terms, limitations, prohibitions, allowances, definitions, all of those are under agreement between the auto dealers, Tesla, and myself.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I would speak in opposition to the motion and speak in favor of the bill. I think there's been a good amendment that's been proposed that seems to me to be consistent. Those that have approached me that have been opposed to it in the past have now approached me and said they're in favor. I think there's still time to vet this bill through the Senate, and I would encourage us to deny the motion and vote on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further lights, Representative Arendt, I'm going to come back to you on the motion to circle.
Thank you. What we heard from the sponsor of the bill is that almost all of the changes that were requested were in here. And I don't know if the most important ones are in here, the least important ones. I assume it's the most important, but I don't know what has been left out. I think it's unfortunate that this just didn't all happen in the committee process, because that's where these bills are supposed to be changed substantively. But I don't think it's going to make a big difference if we give those who are so vested in this, and this is such an important part of their business, to give them a couple of hours. We're going to be here late tonight. Let's give them a little time. Let's give us a little time to go through. I'd be surprised if very many people on the floor have had a chance to review this bill in depth, and I don't know what's in it. So for that reason, I urge you to support the motion to circle the bill. We can bring it back up later today.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Coleman to the motion to circle. Just quickly.
Waive.
Thank you. Representatives, the motion before us is to circle second substitute House Bill 394. All in favor of the motion to circle, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Well, that motion fails. All right, Representatives, we are back to discussion on the bill. For those of you that would like to have discussion on the bill, Representative Elison, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield for a few questions?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So when we say this is a consensus bill, are the manufacturers on board with this also?
Once again, the manufacturers were invited to participate in this, and in fact even offered some language and then chose to not engage on the bill. So it's kind of been a late reaction, I think, of the manufacturers. They do oppose this. And largely, I started to craft a bill that would be an everybody can play bill, because that's where my principles lie. That's what I believe in the free market. But coming to understand what the relationship is with our local dealerships and the manufacturers, I listened to that. I took it to heart, and I've evolved a little bit myself over the last 5 weeks to understand that there is something of a delicate equilibrium that exists between the national manufacturers and our local dealerships. And because of that, I chose to do what we could to preserve, through this bill, preserve that existence, that market, and carve out a new one. So to the extent that the manufacturers are prohibited from coming into this market as an online dealer and competing directly against their own franchisees, they're not happy about that. I concede that. But I erred on the side of working with the dealerships to protect that industry as it impacts Utah and the business community and employment.
Thank you. Could Tesla open a dealership right now if they wanted to play by the existing rules, even in a city like West Jordan?
So I've spent 5 weeks, thank you for the question. For 5 weeks, I've heard about how fragile the relationship is between manufacturers and franchisees. That there's a historical, there's a history of mistreatment, of unfair practices, even arbitrary yanking of franchises over time. And as I've heard about how awful this existence is, how they walk on eggshells with their manufacturers, then the final cry is, well, and we want Tesla to join in our misery. And in what world does that make sense? And so what we choose to do here in this bill is to create the new path while maintaining the existing system that, if you speak to them, and they've said it to the media, it works for us. And so we maintain that through this legislation, and we minimize the risk of any unfair competition with the manufacturers. So Tesla, as I mentioned, like Apple, like Dell, and the internet has been a big factor in changing and being able to change distribution of goods in this country. has chosen not to engage a third-party middleman, which we know results in part in higher prices and in some degree to less customer satisfaction. So we have a company that, yes, they could technically, if that's what they do, but they don't do that. They don't engage third-party franchisees. It would be legal if that's what you're asking me, but it is a new day, and we can't create the new world using an old map.
One more question, if I may. You mentioned Apple and Google cars that may be forthcoming. In a handout that was given, you'd mentioned that a manufacturer is not eligible for an online dealer's license if it does not have manufacturing operations for its line make in the U.S. by May 12, 2015. So from a free market perspective, would Google and Apple then be able to open up as soon as they have their vehicles ready?
So what that section does is limit manufacturers who currently have franchises in the state. They're grandfathered under that date. So Apple and Google would not.
Go ahead, Representative.
So Apple and Google should not fall under that.
So would Apple and Google then be able to open or not, just to clarify?
No, I believe that any new manufacturers that do not have existing franchisee relationships in the state of Utah by May 12, 2015 would be able to enter this new market.
So this will just really benefit then one vendor, one manufacturer?
No, it should benefit any new manufacturer that comes online in this new market as an online dealership. What we do with this grandfathering date is ensure that existing manufacturers with existing franchise relationships do not switch lanes, so to speak, pun intended, switch lanes, to then become an online dealer. The concern, again, this is in direct response to concerns that some of you expressed to me in this body, as well as what the dealers expressed. What prevents that manufacturer from allowing my franchise agreement to expire or arbitrarily revoking it so then they can become an online dealer? And so we put this in there to prevent that. So if there is a manufacturer by May 15th that has a franchise relationship in this state, they will not be able to change that and jump into the other lane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We've got a lot of lights. Representative Pitcher, you were next.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Would the sponsor answer a question?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yes.
Go ahead.
If we do not move on this, if we fail to pass this out of this House, where will that leave Tesla as of right now?
Thank you. Tesla will continue to be able to have a business presence in the state. Currently, they have 10 charging stations around the state. They also sell their patent on this, so other manufacturers can enjoy this new technology. Tesla is not just investing in a car, they're investing in infrastructure. So Tesla will still have a presence. What happens to South Salt Lake is the nature of that business changes. What happens to jobs is those don't happen. And then what happens to the Tesla consumer? Because I will submit to you, Tesla is a $100,000 car. It is a fully electric car. This is a niche market, and the people who buy them will continue to buy them. They will go buy them, but they'll go to another state to buy them. And you know what we've done is we've created a black market of Teslas and maybe some customers who are doing something illegal because they are transacting these car sales, and it's not legal right now. So it's crazy that we would do this to our own citizens and that we make people go to another state to buy a car. Thank you.
Thank you. Representatives, I just last week when we dealt with this, the other automotive bill, if you recall, that bill really did not increase new sales to the state. What that bill really did is it just really distributed what sales there were to a wider area. There was no increase of sales at all. If you remember the model that was presented, it just did not. In fact, it was hard for me to understand why the dealers were willing to do this. I'm glad they did. I voted for the bill. I thought it was good policy. But here's what we have on this one. We have a brand new company who's coming in. These are total electric cars. They're great cars. I need to also proclaim a conflict of interest. I actually flew out of state and not too long ago, and I'm in the process of buying a car, a Tesla. And you always seem to talk on the things you understand best. I could see their model. I see how they're producing it. It is a new way of marketing that is working for these manufacturers that are starting in the electric car business. It's to deny the future of what's really happening now. We see all around us what's happening with alternate fuels, what's happening with these manufacturers that are willing to put the money into the process, come into the state, and develop an excellent product. Now, as a chamber, I believe, have we not decided we want to tackle clean air? Is that not one of our directions we've decided to really consider? We're looking at buses. We're looking at other ways to do something to tackle this issue of clean air. Now, we haven't had the inversions this year like we've had last year's, but when they come, they're here. And then, of course, we feel the pressure for our constituents to do something. I think that we need to really take a look at this and see this is excellent policy. The good representatives have taken the time. She's negotiated the terms out. There's been a compromise. I would submit to you that this is a good model. This is the model that's going to happen throughout the states. Now, would I have liked to have bought the Tesla here? Absolutely. I'd like to have gone to Salt Lake, and I'd like to have bought that. But I had to go out. I had to fly out of state to do it. Because why? I wanted to drive it. I wanted to look at it. I wanted to examine it and see if it was really what I could see on the internet. It was. It just was a good. And so any of your constituents would love to have the same possibility to actually go into the neighborhood and look at the car, examine it, and do their due diligence. I think that's important. So I thank you for your indulgence to listen to this. I really would encourage.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Spendlove, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. With the sponsor yield to a question.
Representative Coleman, will you yield?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I don't want to belabor this point too much, but there's been a little bit of lack of clarity about the consensus. Is it your understanding that the dealers are fully on board with this bill?
Thank you. Again, on Friday, with our Assistant Majority Whip, we had a meeting of the minds. We had a negotiated agreement. Like I said, this bill, largely, those things are all incorporated in this bill. Over the weekend, the auto dealers suggested a new set of demands, requests, however you want to put it. We considered those. Most of those were placed in that. So to answer a previous question, one of the things that they added on top of this, as an example, was that they asked that Tesla put up a $1 million security bond. every dealer in this state, every dealership is required to put up a $75,000 security bond. So for us, we renegotiated that, and we said that's not acceptable to ask a dealership that ask Tesla to put up $1 million bond when they sell a fraction of the cars that the auto dealers do, that the traditional auto dealers do. And so that was one place that they actually agreed to. One place they wanted to go is they wanted to say that any manufacturer that has a franchise anywhere in the whole country would be subject to this grandfathering. And as I'm looking at what's happening with the captured market of the traditional auto dealerships, and we're creating a new path for the new model of auto sales, I don't want to just pile on more capture, more regulations on top of that. So that was something that was not a part of our original agreement on Friday, and that is possibly an outstanding term at this point, and it's a term that exceeded our original agreement. So to the extent that they're reviewing the technical language that's been out for a handful of hours now, it's I would say a qualified agreement. So what Mr. Craig Bickmore represented was that they do agree in terms and concepts what I am presenting to you today and what is in this bill. However, we have both agreed that if we come across any technical language that still needs working on, we will work on that together as it moves to the Senate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Fossen, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Will the sponsor yield to a series of questions?
Will you yield?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Would this bill allow manufacturers not currently selling a line of cars here in the U.S. to sell those cars? For example, General Motors selling Opel branded cars in Europe?
Is that the question? Thank you. So I just did a Google search yesterday, and I looked up, there's language in the bill that restricts a manufacturer with a franchise presence in our state to engage in this lane of the market. What we put in the language, though, is not just the manufacturer, but an affiliate or subsidiary. And so I went online and I just Googled auto manufacturing subsidiaries and got a really nice chart of at least the top 10 manufacturers that have affiliates and subsidiaries across the world, and looking at what exists out there. So we think, and we gave this language specifically to the Utah auto dealers to review that language, and that is actually language from them that they added. I think we had manufacturer or subsidiary. I think they added the additional language, affiliate, and then signed off on that. Essentially, did not redline that piece, but added that. So we believe that captures any manufacturer in any form, and we work hard with this grandfathering date to make sure they don't manipulate this and sort of change their name and try to come into this market with a different name, different face. So we think the legal language, again, in consultation with the auto dealers, does that, limits that.
Thank you. That was probably the primary concern that I heard about current manufacturers here in the U.S. selling very like type vehicles under different brands. So I appreciate the sponsor addressing that. My follow-up question is, will it allow foreign car manufacturers that are new to the U.S., such as those emerging in China or India, to sell into Utah using this same model?
Thank you. Yes, it would. As an online dealership where primary sales would be held, would be transacted online, and where there is not an existing manufacturer-franchise relationship. To add a consumer protection element to this, though, again, we submit to what other dealerships do to bonds. But we also create this element of a service center. So there was a question earlier about the service center, that any sales that happen under this under this license, under this dealership license, is still subject to all the same lemon laws and things like that exist for the other dealerships, but we require them to have a service center. So you don't have a fly-by-night company that dumps a bunch of cars in our state with no way to handle warranties or recalls or general service. So I think that is a strong deterrent. Again, the auto dealers helped us craft the language of that service center to ensure that was actually their suggestion, what happens in this case. So we do put that element of the service center as a consumer protection and as a practical matter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I think that addressed the two major questions that I had heard, and my hat's off to the bill sponsor for jumping through numerous hoops and coming up with something that I would consider workable here in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Ipson, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. One of the notions that I've heard is a lot of the discussions gone on is the matter of sales tax on this vehicle, that we'd lose revenue if Tesla wasn't allowed to service the car or sell the car here. Many of you know I think I bought a few cars online. So here's the deal. The car, it doesn't matter, but I want to put to bed the notion that it's a loss of revenue if we don't do this. Every car that is bought out of state and brought in the state before it can be licensed the sales tax has to be paid at our state rate at your address, period.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Wilson, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this issue. We've had a lot of discussion and a lot of debate, and the sponsors worked very hard on this, which isn't necessarily a reason to pass a bill. But when you've got something like this, I think it's pretty important that we stop and pause and reflect on the facts of what's going on. This is a big deal. We, for the first time in my lifetime that I can remember, are changing the way that you can buy a car in Utah if we pass this bill. And the world is changing rapidly, and I find it a little surprising that the manufacturers who are opposed to this bill are opposed to it. I think that if they took the long view and the big view, they would think this is probably a unique opportunity for us. But they're taking a short-term view of this. Now, this is a very delicate regulatory environment that we have waded into as a state over many, many years. And we have created a piece of the code that probably rightfully so, because of the big heavy hand of manufacturers, we've protected these car dealers. But I was in the room, representatives, and I know that we have a compromise between the dealers and Tesla. I will also tell you that the manufacturers are a little uncomfortable with that. And it's the specific provisions of this bill. But from my perspective, if you take that long view, this is a win for everyone. The world is changing. There are new markets. We've talked about this disruptive technology that's changing the way we buy all kinds of things. And cars are some of the last things to arrive at this place. So as we vote on this bill, whenever that occurs, which might be sometime today, I would encourage you to think about this opportunity that we have to start to change the world just a little bit. We have car dealers here. They're not going anywhere. Most of us want to go in, pick a car off the lot, buy a car that day, and go home with it. But there are these small, unique little manufacturers like Tesla and others that maybe have a slightly different business model. And I find it kind of crazy, quite frankly, that business-friendly conservative Utah is having a hard time with this, that we have a manufacturer that's done something unique and innovative, and we're trying to stop them from coming into this market. I think this is a great piece of legislation, and I encourage your support. This is not perfect. It balances the relationship between the dealers and this new entrant, I think, is about as well as it could be. Quite frankly, the dealers and Tesla were both equally unhappy with this deal by the time we got done with it. I think that's usually the hallmark of a good piece of legislation, when everyone's a little bit ticked off at you. So I encourage your support, Representatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Gibson, you are next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representatives, thank you for not circling this bill. I've heard someone say that in a previous bill, we have run over these great businesses in Utah that provide so much capital investment. We've just ran over them. And now this bill is portrayed to be backing over them again. Is it possible that the golden freeway that this legislature has created for these businesses now has a pothole, is now being questioned? We're not protecting them. We're allowing something new and unique to come. We've worked hard. The sponsor has worked hard at this to try to get compromise, to try to allow something new, something different. I hope that you'll support this bill.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further lights, Representative Coleman, back to you for summation on the bill.
Thank you. You might feel sympathetic to what you're hearing. When we talk about almost 3,000 workers employed by our dealerships in Utah, that's significant. We've talked about the economic impact to our sales tax revenue stream. I get that. I understand that. I think of anybody here, I've probably been moved from one point to another, maybe more than anybody. But I want you to think about what's been said today. I want to close this presentation with Article 12, Section 20 of the Utah Constitution. And please listen to my words of this Constitution. It is the policy of the state of Utah that a free market system shall govern trade and commerce in this state to promote the dispersion of economic and political power and the general welfare of the people. And think about that when we talk about the current set of auto franchise laws we have in place. And as we consider this in the context of what we're talking about today, each contract, combination in the form of trust or otherwise, or conspiracy in restraint of trade or commerce is prohibited. Except as otherwise provided by statute, it is also prohibited for any person to monopolize, attempt to monopolize, or combine or conspire with any other person or persons to monopolize any part of trade or commerce. And I believe that it's that last section that has informed this body in a previous time to do what it has done concerning this law, concerning this set of laws. But Tesla, Google, Apple cars, you name it, we don't even know what's 5 years from now. We don't even know. And like one of the members just mentioned, the world is changing. You know, the internet snuck up on the 25-year-old auto dealership, but it didn't sneak up on the rest of us. It didn't sneak up on the world. This is where we are. And we need to allow this new market to run unconstrained by the pressures of the candle makers and the buggy whips. People will continue to buy their Teslas. They will buy their Teslas. It's what they want. It's not removing a potential sale from another dealer. Ask a Tesla owner. We just force them either to go to another state and buy it or to break the law and buy it online here. And how does that comport with our Constitution? How? Utah is supposed to be the welcome mat for business. I would ask you to vote to roll up the unwelcome mat on this business that we should welcome. They will be here tomorrow participating in the Clean Air Business Forum, and that should be a partner. That should be a proud piece in our economic development portfolio for the state of Utah. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Voting is open on second substitute House Bill 394, new car sales amendments. Representative Noel, Representative King, Representative Aaron. Seeing all present having voted, voting is closed. Second substitute, House Bill 394, having received 32 yea votes, 41 nay votes, fails to pass this House and will be referred to staff for filing. Representative Sampay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I move that HB 2, Public Education Budget Amendments, HB 3, Current Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations, and HB 8, State Agency and Higher Education Compensation Appropriations, be lifted from the House Rules Committee, read for the second time, and placed at the top of the third reading calendar.
That motion is in order. Representative, would you like to speak to that?
I would, just briefly. JR 43301 requires that we pass our budget bills no later than tomorrow. So we have 3 budget bills. They're supplemental bills that, for the most part, add appropriations to our base budgets. We have 3 in the House, 3 are in the Senate. The intent here is to move them out of rules, put them at the top of the third reading calendar. We'll circle them now so that we can hear them later this evening. The Senate is doing the same so that hopefully we'll have the Senate bills by the end of tonight or by early tomorrow, and vice versa, so that the bills can be heard in the opposing bodies by tomorrow, thereby meeting the rule. This is not the final budget. These are the building blocks added to our base budgets, from which we will have one more bill of bills on the last day that will then be the finalization of all the budgets.
Thank you, Representative. Representatives, the motion before us is to move House Bill 2, Public Education Budget Amendments, House Bill 3, Current Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations, and House Bill 8, State Agency and Higher Education Compensation Appropriations, to lift them from the House Rules Committee, read them for the second time, and place them at the top of the House third reading calendar. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I'll rule that motion passes. Madam Reading Clerk, for reading of the bills.
HB 2, Public Education Budget Amendments, Representative Sampay. HB 3, Current Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations, Representative Sampay. And HB 8, State Agency and Higher Education Compensation Appropriations, Representative Sampay.
Thank you, Madam Reading Clerk. Those bills have been read now for the second time and will be placed at the top of the third reading calendar. Representative Sampay. Thank you. Madam Reading Clerk, for items on the third reading calendar.
HB 2, Public Education Budget Amendments, Representative Sampay. This bill did not receive a standing committee hearing.
Representative Sampay.
Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle House Bill 2. Any discussion to the motion to circle? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is circled. Madam Reading Clerk.
HB 3, Current Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations, Representative Sampay. This bill did not receive a committee hearing.
Representative Sampay.
Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle House Bill 8, State Agency and Higher Education Skipped one. Motion is to circle House Bill 3, Current Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations. Any discussion to that motion? Representative Briscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would this pro tem, would the sponsor yield?
Representative Sampay, will you yield?
I will.
Go ahead.
I have a copy on my desk of HB 8. Will we be receiving copies of HB 2 and HB 3 before we vote on them?
Yes, that is the intention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any additional discussion to the motion to circle? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. Madam Reading Clerk.
HB 8, State Agency and Higher Education Compensation Appropriations. Representative Sampey. This bill did not receive a committee hearing.
Representative Sampey.
Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle HB 8, State Agency and Higher Education Compensation Appropriations. Any discussion to that motion to circle? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is circled. Madam Reading Clerk, for Standing Committee reports.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Rules Committee reports a favorable recommendation on H.R. 6, House Rules Resolution on Bills by Representative Dunnigan. Respectfully, Michael Noel, Committee Chair.
Representative Noel.
I would move to adopt the committee report.
Motion is to adopt the House Rules Committee report. Any discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. H.R. 6 has been read for the second time, and it will be placed at the bottom of the House third reading calendar. Madam Reading Clerk.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Ethics Committee reports a favorable recommendation on SJR 16, Joint Rules Resolution on Independent Legislative Ethics Commission hiring modifications by Senator Hilliard with amendments. Respectfully, Stephen Handy, Committee Chair.
Representative Handy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. A motion to accept the committee report.
Motion is to accept the Ethics Committee report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. Senate Joint Resolution 16 as amended has been read for the second time and will be placed at the bottom of the Senate third reading calendar. Madam Reading Clerk, for communications from the Senate.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the President of the Senate has signed HB 206, Local District Service Amendments by Representative Perry. Has signed third substitute HB 249, Amendments to Fire Code by Representative Kennedy. Has signed first substitute HB 256, Revenue Reviews for Certain Funds by Representative Ellison. Has signed second substitute HB 290, New Car Dealership Franchise Amendments by Representative McKell, and are transmitted for the signature of the Speaker. Respectfully, Leslie McLean, Secretary of the Senate.
Thank you, Madam Reading Clerk. These bills will be signed by the Speaker Pro Tem and referred to staff for enrolling. Madam Reading Clerk.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Senate passed as substituted second substitute SB 160, Transportation Funding Amendments by Senator Van Tassel, and is transmitted for consideration. Respectfully, Leslie McLean, Secretary of the Senate.
This bill has been read for the first time and will be referred to the Rules Committee. Okay. Representative Noel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move that we lift first substitute Senate Bill 94, Corporate Franchise and Income Tax Amendments from the Rules Committee, placed at the bottom of the Senate third reading calendar.
That motion is in order. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, this bill went to committee. It passed out, the House committee passed out with a favorable recommendation. We were waiting for a fiscal note. The fiscal note is now here. Fiscal note is now here. It's 0. And so we'd like to put that on the calendar.
Okay, Representatives, the motion before us is to lift first substitute House Bill 94, corporate franchise and income tax amendments, from the Rules Committee and place it at the bottom of the Senate third reading calendar now that it has received its required fiscal note. Any discussion to the motion to lift? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. Okay, Representatives, I believe we have all of our other extracurricular business done. So with that, we're going to return to the House third reading calendar and begin with items on the House third reading calendar. So, Madam Reading Clerk, for items on the House third reading calendar.
For substitute HB 409, amendments to the Procurement Code, Representative Snow. This bill was heard in Economic Development and Workforce Services with a vote of 11-01.
Representative Snow.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd like to move an amendment, please.
That motion is in order. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I'd like to move amendment number 1, made under my name, dated March 9th, 2015.
Representatives, the motion before us is to move amendment number 1 to first substitute House Bill 409, amendments to the Procurement Code. Representative Snow, did you want to elaborate on that amendment?
Just briefly, this is a 4-word amendment. It's to correct what is both a grammatical error, but it also resolves potentially a legal issue. And it's that simple in its form.
Thank you, Representative. Discussion to the motion to amend. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Well, that motion passes. The bill is amended. Representative Snow, back to you for presentation of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. This bill updates the process in the Procurement Code. The Procurement Code is that part of our law that regulates the contracting by the state for goods and services. It's a very complex code and has been updated from time to time. In this case, the updates that I've incorporated in the bill have been under the direction of Mr. Kent Beers, who is the Director of State Purchasing. Primarily, one of the changes relates to the definition of design professional. It adds the term design professional to define an architect or engineer or land surveyor. It makes that language consistent with other areas in our state code and industry using the term design professional. These provisions in the amendment clarify the selection method of design professional services. It clarifies the evaluation process and updates conflict of interest provisions to be consistent with the other updated procurement sections. Clarifies procurement appeal provisions relating to local government procurement units. Makes technical changes requested by state purchasing to clarify issues with previous procurement section updates. There's one substantive change that the body ought to be aware of. There are a list of activities and entities that are not made subject to the procurement process previously. This body, both bodies, the House of Representatives and the Senate, were exempted from compliance with the Procurement Code. This amendment that is in front of you deletes that exemption, so these bodies, legislative bodies, hereafter, if this becomes law, would be subject to the Procurement Code like most government entities. That's presentation of the bill, and I'm prepared to take questions.
Thank you, Representative. Discussion to the bill. Seeing none, Representative Snow, back to you for summation.
Thank you. I respectfully waive. Thank you.
Thank you. Representatives, voting is open on first substitute House Bill 409 as amended. Amendments to the Procurement Code. Seeing all present having voted, voting is closed. First substitute House Bill 409, having received 73 yea votes, 0 nay votes, passes this body and will be referred to the Senate for further consideration. Madam Reading Clerk.
Second substitute HB 291, procurement changes, Representative Stratton. This bill was heard in Government Operations with a vote of 802.
Representative Stratton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle. It's in order. Would you like to speak to that?
Yes, there's an amendment coming that simplifies and makes it a better bill, and we don't have enough time. We'll just take a few more minutes to discuss and what we have right now. Thank you.
Representatives, the motion is to circle second substitute House Bill 291, procurement changes. Any discussion to the motion to circle? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is circled. Madam Reading Clerk.
HB 329, Western States Presidential Primary Amendments, Representative John Cox. This bill was heard in Government Operations with a vote of 712.
Representative Cox.
Motion to circle.
Motion is to circle. Would you like to speak to that?
All dogs go to heaven, and so sometimes some bills need to go there too. So yeah.
Representatives, the motion is to circle House Bill 329, Western States Presidential Primary Amendments. Any discussion of that motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. The bill is circled. Madam Reading Clerk.
HB 416, certain employees forfeit of retirement for employment-related offenses. Representative McKay. This bill was heard in political subdivisions with a vote of 804.
Representative McKay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If there was ever an opportunity to do something that would change something that happened that really bothered you, you'd do it. The purpose of this bill is to change something that really bothered me. Can you imagine a scenario where someone under suspicion of criminal behavior would hold out in an elected office until such time that their retirement benefits had accrued? Could you imagine doing that? Could you imagine letting the state spend money in an investigation waiting for you to come to this time, this magic time when you have determined that your retirement has been vested, and then you resign this position that you've held on to? HB 416, its primary purpose is to make it so that elected officials and their appointed deputies who are eligible in their Utah retirement system, if they commit a crime, the time of service that they have in the Utah retirement system would stop working from the date the crime was committed.
so that retirement benefits would stop accruing for that criminal. And the key here is that it's all post-conviction. So the due process, everything else has been has been exhausted, and now we have the option to, as an employer, to look back and fix the problem so that the retirement issue can be dealt with from the date of the crime, and not reward people who are crafty criminals and choose to get away with it for a long period of time, and just because we were inefficient in enforcement, allowing them to have a retirement. This would be stopped with HB 416. With that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Thank you, Representative. Discussion to the bill. Representative Daw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Without further comment, I just want to say I really love this bill.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Noel. Would you like to discussion to the bill?
I just had a question on, you said will the sponsor yield to some questions?
Will the sponsor yield?
I will yield.
The question I had was, you said post-conviction. So, in other words, if the crime was committed and it was several years before the individual was convicted, then you would go back to the time that the crime was committed. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
So what happens if there's an appeal on that during that period of time, and it goes on for another 7 years? Does it, and they're ultimately found innocent of that crime? What happens then?
Perfect question. Thank you very much. So all remedies have to have been exhausted in this process. Once they've been satisfied, due process, both substantive and procedural due process, have been given to the individual, and as a result, then they would look back at the date of the crime and make it invalid for retirement reimbursement, or at least, take back those years of service that person gave after the date of the crime, because they should have been terminated at that point.
Okay, and the final question is, I guess this only pertains to your state retirement there's no income contributed from the offender. So if it be a 401k where there's a matching income, that matching income would not be taken away from the individual. Am I assuming that, or is it just state retirement?
It's just state retirement. That's a great question, and it would not take any contributions that the individual put into a plan that was vested in that plan. It would not apply to those payments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Cunningham, discussion to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pro Tem, will the maker of the bill...
Will you yield, Representative?
I have a question. Answer a question for me.
I will yield.
Go ahead.
With the forfeiture, what happens to the money?
It stays in the retirement system.
May I do a follow-up? If I may? In most retirement systems, after so many years, if we have somebody not claiming that money, then it goes into a certain account, then goes to the state. Is that so? It's just going to follow the normal retirement rules
that is correct.
That are out there. Okay, thank you.
That is correct.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further lights, Representative McKay, back to you for summation on the bill.
Thank you very much. This is an important piece of legislation. It took a long time to work through many of the issues related to the retirement code and working with URS. And I appreciate everybody who's helped me work through this bill, and I would appreciate a vote in support of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Representatives, voting is open on House Bill 416, Certain Employees' Forfeit of Retirement for Employment-Related Offenses. Representative McKell. Seeing all present having voted, voting is closed. House Bill 416, having received 73 yea votes, 0 nay votes, passes this body and will be transmitted to the Senate for further consideration. Madam Reading Clerk for communications from the Senate.
March 9, 2015, the Senate passed first substitute HB 151, Affiliated Emergency Service Worker Post-Retirement Employment Amendments by Representative Sagers, which has been signed by the President and is transmitted for the signature of the Speaker. Respectfully, Leslie McLean, Secretary of the Senate.
This bill will be signed by the Speaker Pro Tem and referred to staff for enrolling. Madam Reading Clerk.
March 9, 2015, Mr. Speaker, the Senate passed SB 9, Revenue Bond and Capital Facilities Amendments by Senator Harper. Passed SB 2, New Fiscal Year Supplemental Appropriations Act by Senator Hilliard. Passed SB 4, Current School Year Supplemental Public Education Budget Amendments by Senator Hilliard. Passed as substituted. First substitute SB 222, Digital Teaching and Learning Program Proposal by Senator Stevenson. Passed as amended SB 250, Income Tax Revisions by Senator Bramble. Passed SB 253, Exceptions for Privately Funded Scholarships by Senator Jenkins. Passed as substituted. First substitute SB 263, Early Reading Amendments by Senator Urquhart. Passed SB 268, Student Leadership Skills Grant by Senator Osmond. Passed as amended SB 269, Family Expenses and Amendments by Senator Bramble, and are transmitted for consideration. Respectfully, Leslie McLean, Secretary of the Senate.
These bills have been read for the first time and will be referred to the Rules Committee. Representative Handy, we've got standing committees coming up in a few minutes. Did you want to give any announcements for what will happen between now and the time we get back to the floor?
Just very quickly, I think that if you've been going in and out, you can see that the third house staff is heating up some dinner, some soup, and some other things. And so that'll be available after your committee meetings, and we'll just have to be kind of casual about it because I know you'd like us back on about 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Sampey.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, I motion that we recess until 5:30 p.m.
Thank you, Representative. The motion is that we recess until 5:30 this afternoon. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Rule that motion passes. We are recessed. Thank you, Representatives.